Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Harling. Welcome today to the Advocator Program. We have a special guest in our studio today, Judge James McLeod, City Court Judge with the City of Buffalo. Come back. We have a great program for you today. Thanks so much.
Different words describe different people. But in the eyes of the law, there's one that fits us all. Human right number 7. We're all equal before the law. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
Welcome back. Again, this is Nicole Harling with the Advocator Program. Welcome, Judge McLeod. What I want to talk to you today is about the Crossroad Program. Give me a little background on that program.
Well, the Crossroads program is one that sort of evolved from an idea that I had many years ago. Before I came to the city court, I was an assistant county attorney, and one of the responsibilities I had was dealing with the prosecution of juveniles in the family court. And once I got to the city court building, I started to see a lot of the kids who used to be in family court now coming to the city court. In addition to that, I saw programs that we had in our building for adults, drug program, domestic violence program, programs like that. And my belief was, well, we have a lot of people in these adult programs because we didn't do anything to perhaps stop the problem when the defendants first started getting involved in crime as juveniles. And a lot of these cases in these other courts were with people who had many, many contacts with the court system. And so I thought that it would be a good idea to try to come up with a court that dealt specifically with young people, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, in an effort to try to stop them from continuing in the cycle of returning back into the courts, especially low-income young people and young people of color that unfortunately make up a large number of the defendants in the system. And so over a number of years with this concept, starting to get different people to work with me, different programs to work with me, the Crossroads program sort of evolved. And it is where it is today. We're still moving forward, still evolving, but it's as a result of that idea that we needed to try to stop young people from coming into the criminal justice system and getting them into something that was going to be positive and help them with their lives.
Absolutely. What sponsors or organizers do you have helping you with the Crossroad Program?
Well, they're really not sponsors. What they are organizations that exist in the community already that needed, in my opinion, to bump up their involvement, so to speak. So we have the Buffalo Board of Education, because most of the kids who come through our court and most of the people who come through the criminal justice system as a whole, the statistics show they're people who dropped out of school, folks who never graduated, folks who never got any kind of diploma. And so I started to work with the Buffalo Board of Education in an effort to try to get them to work with us, young people who had dropped out of school or weren't going to school, to get them back into school, young people who had been suspended from school, perhaps for long periods of time that were totally unnecessary, to try to stop those suspensions and get kids back in school. For those who had withdrawn from school, had been out for a while, or did not have enough credits to graduate before they were 21, to try to get them into GED programs. And with the GED concept, realizing that there was a need for that, and sometimes there was a need to really stay on people to ensure that they went to school. I actually created a GED program in our courthouse, which is a unique sort of concept.
So you have a GED courthouse.
GED program,
in
our courthouse.
In Delaware, on Delaware Avenue.
Delaware Avenue.
Wonderful.
So young people who may come to court for their case, they come to court in the morning for their case, they go to school in the afternoon. And as a result of their being there, we have more consistency as far as attendance, better involvement in the classes. And as a result of that, hopefully, more kids who are going to be able to get their diplomas and do something positive with themselves.
Absolutely. What are the other organizers, shall I say, that assist you?
Well, we have the Heart Foundation, which is a key component in our piece. The Heart Foundation is an organization that I heard about, was brought to my attention by someone who worked in our building a number of years ago. They're located at Kensington and Bailey Avenue.
Okay.
And I was told that they had programs there, counseling programs, mentoring programs, substance abuse programs. They had mental health components. Met with them, made a determination that, yes, I thought that they would be a good program to work with, and they worked specifically, I should say specifically, but predominantly with kids of color.
Okay.
Black and brown kids. And black and brown kids unfortunately make up the majority of the kids who come through the courts.
Court cases, yes.
Courts everywhere.
Right.
And so we started working with them. We have other agencies like Lakeshore Behavioral Health. We've got a Mid-Erie program that's there. We've got Horizons that works with us as well. And so, and I've also reached out to other organizations like the Back to Basics program, working with them, figuring out how they could help us, and then plugging these young people who come in into the program that I think is better able to serve their needs.
What kind of results have you seen from the Crossroads program?
Well, our program, I think, well, first of all, that which we're doing now, the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, Chief Judge of all of our courts, Jonathan Lippman, came up with the realization that New York and Florida, if memory serves me right, are the two states in the Union that still prosecute young people, when I say young people, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, as adults. And so what he has come up with is some legislation trying to change that system. And in an effort to try to demonstrate why doing that in New York would be a good thing, he created pilot projects throughout the state. Now, the pilot projects he was talking about, I had already started years ago.
Right.
And so there are 5 to 6 of these pilot projects now in the state. And as far as statistics are concerned, results are concerned, our recidivism rate of kids who continue to come back into the courts is it's lower than anywhere else in the state. I think it's somewhere around 10%, if that high, as opposed to numbers that are much higher, 16 into the 20 percentile
Really?
rate. And this is even with these, considering the adult courts. We've got, like I say, drug court or domestic violence.
Yes.
You might have a large number of people who return to these courts. In our court and in the program that we've gotten, the return rate is reduced considerably.
Wonderful. Now, I know we talked earlier before, you mentioned that a lot of these kids, young adults, may not want to come back to see you again.
Well, yeah, part of I guess I have a reputation out there at this point in time where they don't want to come back because I've also thought many times over the years that the courts, in order to try to stop somebody from coming back, showing them that you really mean business, showing them that the court the criminal justice system is not a place that you need to be at.
Right.
That people would come in, they get a slap on the wrist, say, "Oh, nothing really bad happened to me, so I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I don't mind going back because nothing's going to happen to me again."
Right.
When they come into my court, they realize I'm not kidding. That you don't want to come back.
Don't want to come back.
I don't want to come back and see you.
Right.
And so with the realization, if you're 16, if you get arrested again, in the next 2 to 3 years, I'm the only person you're going to see. So if you don't want to see me, that means you're going to have to stay out of the criminal justice system. So in a sense, I've been told that the word on the street is with young people, you don't want to come down there to see him, because he means business, and it's not a place that you want to be at. And to me, if that's what's needed to keep them from coming down to the courthouse, that's what I'm going to do. They say I'm tough, but at least I'm fair. And so.
Well, it's not just young people; it's old people too.
Well, yeah, because again, I think there are too many people coming into the system. There are too many of us coming into the criminal justice system, and too many people are making money off of us coming into the criminal justice system.
Reason, absolutely.
And too many people other than us are making a lot of money on us. And so we need to divert our time and energy into something that's going to be more positive.
Positive, absolutely.
And the courts, if we can help that, we have a responsibility to do it. We aren't just there to prosecute and send somebody on their way or send them to jail. If we have the opportunity to stop them from coming back, we should try to do that.
Do you ever have any of your young people come back to you and say thank you?
Well, I've had them. Yes, I tend to get around an awful lot, so I may see them on the street. I see parents on the street. I see grandparents on the street who come up. I've had people who've come and told me that their child is now graduating from college.
That's wonderful.
But for my intervention. We've got people who say their children are now working or run into kids who are now working. I went to, a few weeks ago, to one of the local businesses that sell pizza. My daughters and I, and as we were leaving, the young girl who was behind the counter, I heard her turn around and say to her coworkers, "That's my judge." so it's like, okay. So now she's working, and in a sense, thank you. I'm here because of what you've
did
done
for
me,
and you helped me. And
so that's a good part.
And this program, the Crossroads program, reiterates that even more so.
Oh yeah, I mean we're getting kids who have gotten their GED and have enrolled in college. I mean, some kids who barely getting a GED, they think, well, that's the highest that they can achieve, as opposed to no, there's even more that you can do. And we have a relationship with Erie Community College, where they work closely with us and assist some of the kids that we have in our program who may graduate or get that GED diploma to get into ECC. And once you get there,
Then
as
the
their commercial says,
sky's
they
the
can go
limit.
anywhere.
Absolutely, the sky's the limit. Wow. The program sounds wonderful. What does a program need to be more successful, you think?
I think one of the major pieces that's missing, and we talked about it off camera, is the need for community organizations and individuals to step up and come down and perhaps act as mentors for us.
Right.
We've got young men, young women who come down who some don't know how to behave, some who have no respect, someone who need to hear it from someone other than me. They need to be able to talk to someone. They can't talk to me outside of the courtroom. We need people to come down and say, listen, I'm willing to link up with a young man or young woman, or bring them to a group setting and try to deal with some of these issues, home issues, community issues, school issues, things like that they need additional help on, but they have no place to go.
Right.
And we have a lot of young people who look at adults and say, you talk a good game, but where are you when we need you?
Exactly.
And we need them to come down. And for years, I've been telling different groups and individuals, as if you're talking about working with young kids in need, young kids who are at risk, you don't have to go any further than 50 Delaware, where the courthouse is. That's where they are. They're beyond at risk. They're
in the
engaged in something.
Right.
So what can you do to help us to disengage them in this behavior, disengage them from the sort of things that they're doing on the street or at home that cause them to be here? And we've got churches, we've got fraternities, we've got sororities, we've got all of those entities out there. It would be nice if some of them said, hey, what can we do to help?
And basically, too, if these mentors or mentees look like the people that they're mentoring, then that's even more so of a positive.
There's no question about that. We have, I've been approached by folks who aren't of color, who said, what can I do to help?
Right.
Send young people to me, we're willing to work with them, and I really appreciate that. But at the same time, I would really appreciate as well folks who look like these kids stepping up and saying, we're willing to help too.
Absolutely. All right, hold that thought. We'll be right back. We're going to discuss more about the Crossroads programs and some of the great things they're doing in the community. So come back.
Next case.
The People versus Martin White. Mr. White has been charged with...
Guilty. Next case.
But Your Honor, you haven't heard the charges yet.
Guilty. Next case. Guilty. 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 I've been prison. Guilty. Next case.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Harling. Welcome back. We have the Honorable Judge McLeod here. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, getting beyond the Crossroads program, why are there so many of us in the system, so many young people coming through? And that's kind of a loaded question,
Well,
I guess.
it is a loaded question. There are a lot of reasons for it, I think.
Yeah.
I think one of the main reasons is a lack of access to positive things.
Right.
A lack of access. When you talk about kids of color, most of the time people talk about, well, let's give them basketball. There's more to life than basketball.
Absolutely.
And so we've got these young people who think they're going to be basketball players, which is a reality that's not there. We need to engage them in the culturals that are out there. They need, plays, musicals, books, just someone who's able to engage in conversation above and beyond what they're dealing with on a daily basis is needed. We've got young people who are really hurting out there. We've got young people who, a young man in front of me today who's homeless. He's 18 years old, has no family. Another kid who's pretty much taking care of himself because his mother's in jail. He's 17 years old. Well, who's taking care of you? Well, I'm just house hopping, trying to find places to live. We've got young ladies who come into court. We've got 2 of them now, and when I say 2 of them, I'm talking about under 18 years old.
Under 18. Who
have been, I've been told, snared up into the human trafficking where they're out selling their bodies. I've had parents who come in who say, I haven't seen my daughter for weeks, and it's my understanding that she's doing X, she's doing Y. And so we need kids to be able to see that there's a lot going on out there, and there are people who care, as opposed to people who have made it, who have forgotten that they weren't always there, and who don't look back and reach down. One of my colleagues, Judge Ogden, always talks about is reach as you climb, that you've got to reach back and pull somebody up with you, and these young people need someone to do that, to encourage them, to tell them that they can do something, to insist that they do better, to say, I know you can do it, and you're going to do it whether I've got to force feed it on you. And then once you get there, you're going to be able to, it's going to be a little bit easier for you because, wow, I didn't think I could accomplish that. And so I think it's a lack of we've got role models, but they don't see them.
Right. That's what I heard. I was listening to the COO or the CEO of the HEART program, and he mentioned that a lot of children feel there's nobody there for me.
Right. You hear about people. You may see them on the TV. You may see them driving down the street, but there's no interaction with them. There's no. One of the things I do, I was sort of alluding to it before. Well, during the course of the day, or I tend to walk around an awful lot. I think I'm probably one of the only judges who walks the street. I have friends of mine saying, "Geez, aren't you afraid? Don't you have security?" No, I'm walking. And
they're afraid of you.
So but as I'm walking and these kids see me, it's like, well, he's a normal person.
Right.
At the same time, and I interact with them. I'm not at the level where if they say something to me, I can't talk to them or encourage them or things like that. They need to see more of that. And because they don't see that, and because they feel that there's a lack of hope, and or I'm going to go to school, and at the end of school, what am I going to do? So there's no reason for me to go to school.
Right.
And so as a result of that, there's nothing left for them to do except, hang on the streets, do whatever. And as you hang on the street, the police are going to have contact with you. And once the police have contact with you, the likelihood is you're going to find yourself arrested, and you're going to find yourself in court. And that's how we get there.
How many people have come through Crossroads, would you say?
Oh, I think in the years, hundreds. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think hundreds. Just for example, today with the caseload that I had, today's Wednesday, I think I did 87 cases on Monday. I think I did maybe about 70 on Tuesday. I think today we did over 60 cases today again. And unfortunately, the numbers of young people involved are increasing. So I guess the right answer is too many.
Too many.
Too many. And so it's my job to try to, at least I like to believe part of my job is to stop them from coming back.
Right. Now you mentioned that the Crossroads program offers GED services. Do they
service.
also offer job placement services?
The Heart Foundation program and ECC, as we deal with them, they have job training programs that these kids can get into, young people, young adults can get into. And the job training programs would then automatically turn into full-time employment. So
Right.
it's not like, Okay, we've heard of job training programs before. Every other year, somebody comes up with one, you're trained, and by the time you finish the training, that what you trained for, the job doesn't
Right,
exist anymore.
right.
This, we're talking about getting them involved in programs where there is actual employment at the end of the day. ECC, for example, is working with the utility companies. The utility companies, the last time we had conversation, they were talking about going into jobs where you're going to get paid $50,000, perhaps $60,000 a year. I was trying to figure out a way to get a part-time job there because I'm
Right.
thinking that's awfully good.
Yeah.
So there are these programs, but at the same time, we have some young people. We've had a couple this week who are in the job training program at the Hart Foundation who don't necessarily see the use for it.
benefit of it.
And so it's like you're doing nothing now. We're talking about getting you an education. We're talking about training you. We're talking about getting you into a job.
Right.
And rather than do that, you'd rather go back to doing nothing. They stop, they think, it's like, well, maybe you've got a point.
Right.
And so can I get back in? And so we find ourselves doing that sometime as well.
Do you also mentor some of these, not you particularly, but mentor some of these young people with certain life skill sets and counseling?
The counseling comes in with the agencies that we talked about, and again, the Hart Foundation does that as well. We had at one point, I mentioned this again before we began the program, with a young lady who took it upon herself. She came down to the court, started to see a lot of these young girls who were coming in, a lot of them with babies, a lot of them pregnant, a lot of them who looked like they were going the way that she went when she was younger,
Right.
who actually put together a program over at the Delavan Moselle Community Center.
Yep.
Unfortunately, as she reached out to groups and organizations to try to help her keep it going, and when I say keep it going, because she was trying to feed these young girls. Some of them would come, they hadn't eaten, or they weren't eating nutritionally,
Right.
or they needed something like clothes for
Clothing or
themselves.
something, yeah.
So she was trying to do that on her own, and the support that we had hoped she was going to get, she did not, and she took it as far as she could take it, and she eventually had to stop because it was too much of a drain on herself and her husband.
Wow. So
But that's the sort of thing that's needed out there. We've got too many of these young girls who just are lost, and anybody can say anything to them,
Right.
and they suck them in, and as a result of that, they're going to go in the wrong direction.
Wrong
As opposed,
direction.
anyone who says "I love you," they're going to accept it, not really understanding what that means, and then
Right.
they're used and abused.
Right.
We need women to come down to work with these young girls. Some live with their fathers, and so conversations that they need to have, they can't have with their fathers. Some live with their mothers, and conversations that they can't have with their mothers for a lot of other issues that are
Right.
going on in the household.
Right.
So they need someone who can talk to them. And that's the sort of help we're looking for.
And again, if anyone's out there who wants to mentor, 50 Delaware, absolutely.
50
go
Delaware,
do it.
they can call our office, 845-2632, and then we can link them up with the entities that are working with us, and they can better figure out how they can fit in.
I mean, you mentioned before the show that there's a lot of churches, a lot of men's group. You know, I've seen them on TV and other places that are willing to help young people. You've reached out to those groups also.
Over the years, I've done that.
Yeah.
And I continue to do that.
Okay.
Because the need continues to be there. And I've told people, even if you gave us 2 or 3 men, you can rotate.
Right.
But we need. Sometimes I was a political science, social science major in college, and sometimes buildings, as good as they are, the need is more outside the 4 walls than inside the walls.
Right.
And so we need people to come out of the walls and work with the individuals that we talk about trying to save. And what we're talking about is our future as a community, as a people.
Right.
Saving. So there will be a tomorrow. There will continue to be our history. We have young people who come down to the court. They have no clue as to how we got to where we are, who in our history allowed us to be where they are.
Absolutely.
I tell young people on a daily basis, or at least sometimes find myself, those that don't go to school, you have no clue what people who look like us had to go through to be able to get us into a school. And you don't want to go now.
Right.
And so they need to understand, and that understanding is going to come from people again. They look at me and say, well, okay, sometimes, Judge, I get it. But other times, well, you're the judge. You're just going to say that. I'm going to say it, but I need other people who are going to say it as well.
Absolutely.
So they're not able to say, well, it's just the judge talking.
Absolutely.
Before it's too late.
So basically, you need time. You need young men, young women, adult women
Yes.
time
Yeah.
to assist.
Right, and we're not talking about an awful lot of time, I
Right.
think, because again, we have these agencies that are working with these young people, Horizons, Lakeshore, et cetera, and so they're engaged there. But in addition to that engagement, they need real people that they can talk. Someone they can just bounce something off their head.
Right.
Someone who can give them some advice. Someone who can give them some direction. That's not related to counseling. That's
Right.
not related to anger management. That's not
Right.
related to substance abuse
Right.
evaluation. That's not related to the mental health assessments and counseling that they engage in. Just that which you would do if you had an older brother, or if you had a
Right.
father, or if you had an uncle, favorite uncle that you would pull to the side and talk to.
Talk to.
That's what we're looking for. That's what's needed. And I think to a large degree we've got a lot of young people who are hurting out there because they don't have that kind of a relationship.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful program. Give the number one more time.
845-2632.
845-2632. Sounds like a wonderful program. Audience, reach out, call.
Come on down. I mean, just come down and watch for a day.
Absolutely.
And once you see it, you can better understand what I'm talking about.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us today. See you next week.